Okay, so start the recording. Start. Oh no, I forgot to change the thing. All right. Boop. Hello and welcome to episode 50. I'm gonna call it 50. Is it 50? I think it's 50.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure last
I
time
don't know.
was
I don't
49.
check these things. We never check these
No, I
things.
really
just
should.
in
And it's
general.
always as
So, like, that's an issue.
as the music is playing, I'm always thinking I should have checked to see what episode this is, but I never do. And I don't learn from my previous mistakes. I'm a bad person as far as that goes. Oh, what's going on here? All right, I don't know what's going on over there.
Okay, good.
Sorry, apologize for that. Hey, so my name is Kyle. I'm your host. Welcome to the Pix Related Podcast. Joining us this week we have Adam.
Got something.
No.
Got something. Got something. You know what's up. Dinner meal. Dinner meal. And my tumby, so good.
So, what Adam is alluding to there is that we did win. We won the chicken dinner.
Got the chicken dinner
in a duo together on Friday night, I believe it was.
Yeah, Friday night.
And it was every bit as wonderful and great that you would hope it would be.
Man, that was real good.
It was, and you know, and it was. We talked about this when we were doing it, or after we were doing it, I suppose. It was actually kind of nice that our first chicken dinner, because none of us have hit chicken dinner solo yet. None of us has won Battlegrounds by ourselves. So the first time was together, and that's always a cool thing because we're kind of Battlegrounds buddies. You know, still as I was telling Adam before the show, I got another second place solo finish over the weekend, and that's heartbreaking and sad as always. But it is. It's sad, and it hurts inside. That one was my own fault. I made a dumb mistake, and that was my own fault. So
Sort of unrelated. I just saw the picture that you threw up of Gus, and yeah, it straight up looks like he's dead.
Okay, so yeah, the elephant in the room. If you're watching, so if you're listening to this, nothing. It's just the two of us. Don't worry about Gus. If you're watching this, Gus is no longer with us. You see, we have his in memoriam picture.
We lost Gus. He's not dead. We lost him at the mall.
So, yeah, it looks really bad, but I think it's funny, so I decided to leave it. And we hadn't figured out a decent way to make our stream look with two people, so we just decided to do the same thing and just have Ghost Gus there smiling and watching over us, because that's basically what he does when he's here anyways, right? He just kind of laughs and smiles and, provides...
that's our Gus.
And talks about Overwatch.
There's
a new Overwatch thing this week, and I don't think either of us have played it. They brought back the Halloween.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's the same thing from last year?
Same thing as last time. Yeah, like they have like an endless mode in this one, which you have like a little bit more control over your character selection, but like you can like just bring in your own costumes and everything on this one. Like they don't put you with the like pre-selected ones.
Okay.
Think like they did before. So like now it's just like every match is like Bath Daddy McCree. Like that's what's going on. It's really fucking weird.
Okay.
It's okay. Like it's easy loot boxes.
Yeah.
I got that Zarya one. That's a pretty fucking sick one. For the 80s gear.
Yeah,
that was really good.
I forgot to think about how easy those loot boxes to get, kind of like during the Uprising event. So I'm gonna have to go in and check it out just for that, because I do like me some loot boxes, which is good because a lot of games have loot boxes now, Adam.
Well, I like some of them, but I also have a tendency to have issues with gambling. So, like they're that's fine, but I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah, loot boxes are a thing.
Uh-huh.
That are in everything nowadays.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. We can talk about it. So I've been playing the only real new thing I've been playing. I shouldn't say the only new thing. I have checked out a little bit of the Dishonored 2 standalone expansion thing, Death of the Outsider. I've only played like maybe 4 hours or 3 hours. So like I'm in like the second mission. There's only 5 missions. It's not a super long game, or maybe it's a third mission. I don't know. Either way, a little ways through it. It seems like more Dishonored. That's fun. That's kind of all I'll say about that. Maybe once I've beaten it, I'll maybe talk a little bit more about it. But it seems cool. The main thing that I have been playing, and the big old thing that I was really excited for coming out this week, was Middle-earth: Shadow of War, the sequel to Shadow of Mordor from 3 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds right. 2014.
Which was a game that I loved that game. Like, that's one of the few games that I got all of the achievements. I went in and I just did every last little thing in that game. Like, I controlled all of the orcs. My entire army was all blue, and like did just absolutely everything. It was just a really fun game. Not so much because of the, quote unquote Lord of the Rings stuff or anything like that. It's not that big of a deal in that game, and it continues to kind of not be that big of a deal in this game. But just
I mean, they put tits on the spider, so I mean, like, you can already tell at that point that it's not really.
I will say, I heard that they did that with Sheila before the game came out, and I never saw any screen captures or something like that. I thought it was going to be more like I was envisioning like a spider version of Kerrigan from StarCraft, like it was.
Nope,
they
need Morgana. They need Morgana again from Dragon Age. Like,
yeah, I thought it was going to be, oh, this is like a spider looking woman. It's like, no, it's just a white lady with dark hair. Like,
yeah, it's like, you want that spider puss, don't you? Like, that's a sentence that I just said on this podcast. But
and you know what? And Talion's he's not interested in that. He wants her for her brain. He wants her for her visions. And yeah, that's kind of weird. But then again, it's kind of goes on to like the Lord of the Rings stuff in the game is so like whatever. Like, I mean, in the first like hour and a half, Gollum shows back up again, and I mean, Gollum's great. Like, in the movies, he's fantastic. He's an interesting character in the books, but he has no business being in this game whatsoever. Except, so the whole premise of the beginning of this game, if you don't remember the last game, which what was going on, I don't necessarily blame you. The very last thing is they go, we're gonna make a new ring, because it's all about Talion, who's a ranger who was killed. And then he somehow gets merged with the Celebrimbor, which is the ghost of the elf who created the rings in the first place, the ones that Sauron used to just, enslave humanity and take over, blah, 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 all that stuff. And so the end of the first game, it's, we're going to make a new ring. And so this game starts off, and guess what? They made that new ring that they were talking about. And then in the first...
Isn't that like a bad thing, though? Like, no, I always thought that, like,
this one's blue.
The rings were bad, though. Like...
So what they say is that they're making a ring that isn't tainted by Sauron's evil, basically. Like, it was like, Celebrimbor's not a bad guy. He was trying to make these rings of power to give to the different races to make them powerful. But then Sauron got in there and put his evil mojo in there, and then made the one ring.
So he's the Middle-earth version of Albert Einstein. Or Robert Oppenheimer.
That's I think that's a fair description. Sure.
Okay, yeah, So the spirit of Albert Einstein invades.
If then later Ghost Albert Einstein was like, we're gonna make the atom bomb, but this time for good. We're gonna make a good atom bomb.
We're gonna make the one that finally does it.
And then within the first like 10 minutes of the game, you lose the ring. And then I know.
What an asshole. Okay.
Well, whatever. You don't have the ring anymore. I'm not going to spoil the dumb story stuff that happens in the game. And then, and so then, like, the Act 1, which I think they just call the prologue or whatever, is you getting the ring back. And then, so you kind of, like, you are defending this Gondor-like city called Minas Tirith or something like that. I don't know Lord of the Rings names.
Minas Tirith?
No, not Minas Tirith, because Minas Tirith is like the main Gondor city. So it's another one. It's a different Minas something.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's Gondor, Gondor stuff, Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah. Got Gondor shit.
So you're helping defend this city, some city. You get like a taste of the Nemesis system, the stuff that's going on. That's what this entire game is about. It's all about the Nemesis system and how awesome the Nemesis system is. The different orcs that you have to fight. They've also laid in what they call war trolls, which are basically kind of how, like in Lord of the Rings, how they took the orcs and they made the Uruk-hai, like the stronger versions. It was like they did the same thing with trolls. So they made smarter trolls so that the trolls actually talk and they have conversations and aren't just lumbering idiots walking around hitting you with a club. And so they are now part of the army as well, people that you have to take down and that you can turn. The weird thing is during the first section you don't have any of the domination powers that you had in the first game, so you are just killing people, kind of messing around. It's kind of like a Nemesis playground basically, because you can't quite do the stuff that you will ultimately end up doing of building your own army and sending guys to go assassinate this guy and do all that stuff. Like, you can't do that stuff because you don't have the domination stuff back. You get that back when you recover the ring again, which happens at the end of Act 1. And then that's kind of where the game actually starts is, all right, now you get to go out and now you're going to build your army and you need to take down these different fortresses. That's right about where I'm at. Is I just got the ring. I unlocked, if you remember from the E3 demonstration, I got Bruce. Bruce is my guy now, and he's just as funny. I hope it's not a type of thing, because like in the first one you got Ratbag was the character you got, and he kind of disappeared pretty shortly after that. Like, never. I thought he was gonna be a cool character, and then he kind of did away with him. I hope that's not the same with Bruce, because Bruce seems really funny, but that remains to be seen. But yeah, it's kind of the same type of thing. Is you got the Nemesis system. You have all these orcs. There's kind of captains. Then there are war chiefs, and then there's an overlord. And so every fortress that you try to take down and make as your own, you basically have to go through the hierarchy of take out these captains that are protecting the war chief. Once you do that, either you take them out or you turn them to your side. Then you can control the war chief or kill the war chief. And then eventually you have to take out the fortress, and either you have war chiefs on your side or you've killed the war chief so that they're not there to impede your progress, and then it's your fortress. Now, like I said, I haven't gotten into that stuff yet because that's kind of like what I'm starting to get into in the game. But it seems pretty great so far. Like, it's Shadow of Mordor stuff. The combat's the same. It's still the Batman combat. It doesn't seem like it's changed a ton on that level. There's definitely a lot more of abilities this time. It seems like, and all of the abilities have different modifiers that you can purchase, so you are leveling up. There is a skill tree that you get experience, and you spend an experience point on unlocking a certain thing. And there's also loot boxes, as we kind of hinted at in the beginning of the podcast there. And the loot boxes are for two different things. One is there is actual loot in this game. You are getting armor and weapons, a bow, a dagger, a sword, stuff like that. There's no reason that I've seen so far to need to spend any loot boxes on that stuff. Because anytime you kill a captain, or I imagine if you turn a captain, you basically get a loot drop, and how good that loot is based on how strong that captain was. So there's actually incentives to, like, in the first game there was things like, oh, you can send this captain a threat, and then that captain will go up 2 levels, so he'll be a stronger fight. And I was like, well, why would I want to do that? I just want to turn him. I want to kill him. Like, I don't need him to be stronger. Now it's like, oh, like, if I make that level 16 captain a level 20 captain, I'm going to get better loot when I go take him out. So, like, that's actually a really cool thing to try to do. Or, like, oh, hey, this, as happens in this game, because the whole conceit is you are an undead guy. You got killed. He, this one guy killed you. Now you have a mission to go kill that guy, and because he killed you and now he's stronger, you will get better loot for him having killed you. And it's a really cool thing. The loot is, blue is the regular, or purple is the best, orange is in the middle. Like, it's it's loot. It's what you would expect in loot. And the stronger stuff has different perks that you can unlock by kind of doing little mini quests. So it'll be something like, oh, if you execute 3 people with this weapon, then you get a little bit of health bath every time you execute someone once you kind of complete that little bonus objective for this weapon. And so it seems like the pace that you're getting loot at's pretty steady. The other part of it is once you do get to the point where you can unlock and start building up your own army, the loot boxes are also give you orcs. It makes no sense whatsoever, but you literally get orcs, or captains, or whatever trolls out of loot boxes that are legendary versions or epic versions of these guys that are really strong, really helpful in controlling your army, which you need to have a pretty strong army to beat down fortresses and do I'm going to send this guy to go kill his superior, and if he's stronger, he'll probably win. Things like that. For what, there's no point that I've seen that I really feel like I would need to buy loot boxes, and the pace that you get the in-game currency seems pretty fast. But I hear that might change as you get later on in the game.
Yeah, the Polygon review was the one that really highlighted that to me, where after you complete the main story, you have to complete this entire other domination mode thing. And that's where having those legendary orcs is critical, and it sounds like the grind for that gets really bad. Yeah, so it seems like it was maybe almost, I don't know for sure, but it seems like maybe they, decided at some point, hey, we're going to have loot boxes in this, so maybe let's tune it so it's maybe a little bit smarter to go for the loot box stuff. And that is gross. It seems like it's super gross. It seems like from all that I've heard about that end game, especially because they lock the true ending to that game behind that mode, that's where it to me seems like I was already not super okay with that. And then for them to put that behind it seems like that is super scuzzy.
Yeah. It remains to be seen. It's hard to say exactly what that means or how difficult that stuff is if you don't have those orcs or whatever. That's many, many hours away. I think that's something like dozens of hours into the game. So I'm definitely looking out for that. At the point what I'm playing the game for is not that. It is just like the first game. It is all about that Nemesis system, and they have ramped up the Nemesis system so much from the first one. The orcs that you encounter seem even more varied. There's one, I haven't run into it yet, but I really want to. There's one that's floating on the internet a couple days ago of a bard. So when you greet him, he just starts singing a song and playing a lute, and that seems pretty awesome. Enemies are smart. They'll remember past encounters from you. I had one guy who I had fought previously, and I don't remember, either he escaped or maybe he killed me. I thought I killed everyone who killed me, so maybe it's someone who escaped, and then he teleported from one area of the map, because it's not like the first Mortar was 2 big areas. This one, it seems like it's 5 or 6 slightly smaller areas, so a larger overall world, but each area kind of has its own hierarchy of fortress, stake, and orcs. So an orc came from a different area to the area I was in, and then started talking to me. It's oh yeah, I thought it was cool in this other place, but now I get to kill you here. This is even better. And I was that's crazy. The type of stuff that they have kind of built into the Nemesis system in this game.
I was hearing about the sword breaker one, which that sounds actually kind of cool. He breaks your sword, and then you have to go kill him to reforge your sword. That's really fucking cool. That's, I think, the real shame of this whole microtransaction shit is it seems like there is some pretty cool stuff going on here, but the conversation is dominated by this stuff. By the loot boxes, it sucks because at some point you don't obviously that's not on the people who are just working there. But that's on the people who make the decisions in that company, and how much Monolith had to do with that versus how much, say, Warner Brothers had to do with it. Like, Warner Brothers has been pretty fucking bad, I feel like, with their promotion of this game. I think they've done a really poor job of it between like this, between the whole charity DLC mess that happened with that.
That at least they ultimately did do the
they ultimately
thing
did the right thing with that.
Yeah.
But it does seem like they have maybe
kind of tone deaf.
Not,
know?
Yeah, they've not done right by that game, and that sucks because it seems like there is a pretty solid game there. It's just what is going to be it's like within like what was it, last week was when Forza dropped, and like while they don't have their paid loot box stuff in it yet, it's coming. It's going to be a thing.
It's the same thing. Happen. I want to say they did that last year with Forza 2, where they were launched without that loot box stuff, and then they added the loot box stuff later in. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that's it. Like I said, I'm not far enough to the game, nor I mean, you know me, I don't buy microtransactions. I'm never going to put any money into this game besides what I paid for to actually buy the game. So I will see if the game gets to the point where I have to stop playing it, or if I'm gonna have to grind out, because like I feel like at the point I'm getting a pretty healthy amount of the in-game currency. There's, as in a lot of these games, there's two currencies. There's the one that you get in-game for kind of just doing everything, and that's used for some in-game stuff as well as you can buy loot boxes with it. And then there is the premium currency, which sounds like there is ways to get that in-game as well, but that is the one that you pay real cash for.
Right.
Well, I'll see. It's still kind of, I have to play a lot more before I'll really know how entrenched that is in just the playing of the game. I will definitely say that it's like you go into the menu and there's a big part in the menu that's buy this loot box with one guaranteed legendary blah 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 and stuff like that. And I mean, whatever. Like, that's all. It's kind of a scary image of like what the future might be with loot boxes taken off the way that they are in so many different games. I mean, I didn't check out the Battlefront 2 beta, but a lot of people are upset about how loot boxes were all over that game as well, even in the
beta. Super gross. They are in the beta. I don't think there was a thing to pay for them in the beta, because that would just be fucking disgusting.
That would be terrible.
That would be disgusting. But in the beta, it is straight up, you are getting loot boxes that are, hey, do you want your TIE fighter to have this ability on it? Do you want to have your Han Solo have like a shoulder charge instead of this other thing? Like, it's all tied into actual game mechanics.
Yeah.
And that's really gross, because then it is leaning it towards the pay to win sort of scenario.
Yeah, which I mean, Shadow of War being a single player game, there's at least none of that. It's like, how much of advantage do you want to give yourself? There is like an online thing that you can get to where you like your fortress is defended against other players, and other players can try to take over your fortress, but it doesn't affect your game at all. It only benefits the person who's attacking. It doesn't, like, you don't lose the fortress, you don't lose resources. Like, I always think back to like the Metal Gear Solid 5, like the forward operating bases where you could come online and you've just lost a bunch of stuff, and it's like, well, that's kind of crappy.
That's why you don't. That's why I straight up didn't have. I never. You could always select like, no, I don't agree to your online terms.
And that is also apparently a thing in Shadow of War as well, is if you don't agree to their online terms and conditions, all that loot box stuff is just grayed out. So, I mean, there is ways that you can, at least that's what I read. I didn't try it for myself because I'll go in and buy dumb loot boxes with the in-game currency. Why not? Loot boxes are fun if they're implemented correctly. But I would always hope that they are stuff that's cosmetic. I mean, we complain about like the implementation of loot boxes in Overwatch or even in Battlegrounds, for example, but at least all that stuff has nothing to do with how the game plays. It is purely cosmetic. And maybe it could be implemented better. Maybe there could be better things for duplicates or just getting bad drops, like is the problem with Battlegrounds.
And I also think this sort of relates. Jason Schreier at Kotaku got in touch with the ESRB, and they said, like, no, we are never going to add a qualifier, or we're currently not. Maybe never is a strong word, but we're never going to add a qualifier to a game's rating that says, hey, there are loot boxes within it, which is like, it's a form of gambling. Like, it's not necessarily like, you know, dropping a quarter and you're not getting anything out of it. You are technically getting something out of it.
Yeah. It's just whether that's a thing that you want. I mean, yes. I saw people I was on Reddit today. I saw people with pictures of those capsule machines. You remember as a kid, where you put a quarter in and it drops a little thing, and they're like, this is the original loot box right here. And it's like,
gotcha.
That's kind of, like, I want a little Batman figure. Oh, I got Robin. Well, that sucks.
The thing that's been really tragic to come out of this is, I mean, I've always sort of alluded that I sometimes have issues with the amount of stuff that I buy for these kinds of games. And it's never gotten to the point where I'm like driven myself broke or anything like that. But hearing some of the stories that have come out of this, and then also like how that some of that stuff relates directly into like gachapon mechanics and shit like that, it's been pretty fucked up. And it sucks that there is not some other solution that's being like implemented. Like WWE 2K18 like had their whole thing where they were showing off like loot box stuff, and they had to come out and say like, no, there is no paid loot box for this. This is all in-game stuff,
which has actually changed from last year, because last year had like virtual currency like all over that game, and now I guess they're getting rid of it.
And I think like that also comes down to like the NBA 2K18 stuff from like last month, where that stuff was pretty maligned. I feel like that was
in the NBA games. It's been bad for years. Like,
right.
It's
I feel like
what drove me away from that series is like, I absolutely loved. I want to say 15. I don't even know. There was I played a couple since then, but there was one that I got super deep into and I loved. And then there was like every year after that, the virtual currency thing started getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And yeah, this most recent one sounds really bad, but it's been terrible for many years. And it drove me away from that series where I can't even enjoy it anymore, because it's like you have to, like, I was doing things where it's like I downloaded an app on my phone where I was playing some dumb mini games to earn virtual currency in my real game, because I felt like just playing the game I wasn't getting enough currency to upgrade my player enough. And then the same currency you would use to upgrade your player is also to buy armbands and shoes and stuff like that. So my character just looked as plain as possible, because obviously I'm going to spend my points to make my character better over something cosmetic. Like, that's a
right. You have to wonder if like we're hitting a critical mass with this stuff, because like it sounds like loot boxes and that sort of stuff, when it is successful, brings in a lot of money. You've heard Overwatch, they've talked a lot about how much Activision and Blizzard have made off of those loot boxes. So you have to wonder, like, what games are going to be searching for. Like Assassin's Creed, that one they showed has got loot boxes in it. Origins is going to have loot boxes in it. And that is definitely now a thing. When I see it, that I have to go, like, okay, I need to know what you're doing with this, because there have been enough bad examples that anytime I see them, I'm going to give pause, and I'm going to say, okay, what the fuck are you doing with it? I don't want to support that bad business practice, especially when it's becoming so much more integral to like how the game design occurs.
Well, it's one thing different, like, because it's kind of a double-edged sword. So like you use like Overwatch as an example, and like, no doubt that's part of the reason that Overwatch is so successful in doing their various different events over the year, adding new maps, adding new characters, stuff like that. Like, having that source of income makes it worthwhile for a studio. Like, look, at Blizzard probably would have done it anyways, because Blizzard's good like that. But like, that's probably a pretty good reason of why they can justify putting this extra resources to growing and the continuation of the game. But other games like Shadow of War, for example, where would that be? Are they going to be adding content for free to that game? No, I think there's a season pass.
No, there's a silver version, there's a gold version. Like,
yeah.
I went onto that store page and like, oh, there are 2 fucking premium editions.
Yeah,
There's always been like Forza has always had like 3 or 4 editions, and I don't think like any of those include season passes.
So it's like, always like it's somewhat, and like when it's implemented well, like I mean, that's what Bungie always said Destiny was doing with their silver and getting the bright engrams and stuff like that. That is helping to fund the live team, which is doing the weekly updates and stuff like that. But like when you get other games that are doing the exact same thing and they're just going, this is to fund us, like this is just like our pockets, we need the money, we need extra money to make, like,
and
yeah,
that a lot of times, I mean, especially like, I don't know if you have watched the Super Bunny Hop video about some of these companies that are saying like, oh no, we have to have these things in our games in order to make money. There was a pretty bad report about how much money they're hiding in offshore tax accounts. So there's definitely a layer of, when they say that, I go, well, I don't know that I believe you at all with some of them. So it's like, it's just a gross thing, and I feel like we're hitting the point where enough people are starting to get really pissed about it that something's going to have to change with it.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more pessimistic than you are, because I think this is just the beginning. Like, I think that it is still on the rise, and it's like, I'm worried that it's going to become more of the norm to have that stuff and to build the game towards that than not. And I really hope that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because it kind of destroyed a lot of like iOS games, for example, or mobile games in general, not just iOS, but and I mean, there's always, just kind of like the rise in everything has to be multiplayer and everything always has to have online components and stuff like that. There's always going to be the developers that are just going to make the games that they want to make and aren't going to be burdened by that. But you don't want to see like great developers and great franchises go south because of stuff like that. And I'm worried that like the way that the things are trending and the way that, supposedly doing this is basically a surefire way to add another 20% to your profit margin or whatever that looks like. Like, ugh. I mean, it might be just for on the publisher side that just may be too worthwhile for them to avoid and to not do.
I guess I'm also right now, and I obviously don't know how it's going to continue, but like right now I'm having a lot of fun playing smaller stuff too. So like, do I need to engage with this stuff when I've got like Golf Story or SteamWorld Dig 2? Like, I would be more inclined to, even if there's something that's like a smaller independent developer, I'm far more inclined to go like, okay, I'll tip you $5 or whatever.
Yeah, like a small little game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah, well, I mean, look.
Hey,
look,
I know it was.
I tipped them an additional $20
they tipped you
or
back.
So. Look, that paid for itself.
You gotta spend money to make money. That's the Battlegrounds way.
Yes, you do. But no, I'm far more okay with like giving that sort of company a little bit extra money.
It doesn't even necessarily, but even smaller companies or bigger companies, whatever, it's the same thing. Like, if you really like something, you should support that thing. Like, I am just on a base level, I really don't like microtransactions and things like that, but like, hey, a game that I got tons of hours and my family really liked was Pokemon Go, and I spent $20 on Pokemon Go because like my kids wanted to have more spots to have Pokemon and more inventory spots to have items and stuff like that. And it's like, you know what, like we walk around town or drive around town catching Pokemon and doing all this stuff, like, yeah, I will put some money into that because I mean, that's a free game anyways, but like it is a good enough game that it's worth my time. And so if you love Shadow of War and it's the greatest game and you really want to just build your army out and make the most awesome outpost filled with the best, strongest orcs, then go for it. Then do it.
Dad. Bye, Dad.
Bye.
Bye.
Then go and do that. Do your thing.
It's a wholesome little moment on this show.
I know, he's a cute little guy. But never feel I would hope the developers would never feel that you're forced to do that you have to do that to be successful or to be competitive in an online game or whatever that looks like. Yeah, it's one of the things that rubbed me the wrong way going way back to like Halo 5. Not necessarily that you needed it to feel competitive, but there was that whole Warzone mode where you had these cards that you could get a tank or you could get a Banshee or whatever, and they're all consumables, and you earn them through playing the game, but you could also buy them through real money, and it's like, it brought this thing of like, well, do I really want to use this card, like with the ghost? Like, are we going to win this match? Is using this ghost, is that going to make us win? Is that going to have a positive effect on the... Okay, like, no, maybe I should just don't use it then. Like, it just, you never want to feel the situation where the game is playing against you.
Yeah, it's man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here, because I think it could be hitting its critical mass at this point, or it could fucking keep going and going worse, and that is a really scary thought. But at the same point, there are going to be other games that I think will be able to hopefully avoid those traps without, getting sucked into bullshit. Look, I have a lot of issues this year with Bethesda, but I'm at least glad that they haven't. Well, they've sort of gone down the bullshit hole with the Creation Club. Let me correct myself there. They've gone down a different bullshit hole than adding in like these loot boxes or anything like that. So I mean, at least I'm not going to have to worry about that with Wolfenstein. Thank God.
I don't think the Christian Club's that bad, because at least, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but at least they didn't cut off other avenues of getting that stuff if you want that stuff, As long as they didn't make it exclusionary, I think you're all right. But hey, whatever. Yeah. Well, we're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to do something we don't often do on this podcast. We were kind of talking after the show last week about how we are pixel related, not necessarily everything about pixels, not just about video games, and we kind of want to branch out to a little bit more stuff. So Adam, we've been talking a lot about like how scary the future is and like how loot boxes are going to take over society. We both saw something that was
Blade Runner 2049 is the future when loot boxes finally take over
society. You end up with replicants who are just trying to be free. They came out of loot boxes. They didn't know. Sometimes they survive.
Oh man, I got a Nexus 8 out of a loot box.
That's basically
great.
That's what happened in 2049 when Jared Leto gets the one, and it's not quite what he wanted. So then he just has to, it's just not quite what he wanted out of his.
Sometimes you gotta stab the sprays.
Yeah.
That sort of.
So we're gonna talk about a movie for a little while. We're gonna talk about Blade Runner 2049. Adam and I have both seen it. Actually, Adam, I don't think I've talked to you. I have no idea what your opinion of the original Blade Runner is, nor do I have any idea what you thought of the movie, because you saw it before I did, and I didn't want to know anything about it until I had seen it myself. So why don't you tell me how you feel about Blade Runner just in general?
Flawed, but I love it. I really love the original Blade Runner, but it's heavily flawed. I think there are problematic things with that movie, specifically trying to turn a rape subplot into a romance subplot. I think that's an issue. However, I really love the world that they built. I had only seen... I don't even know if I've seen the final cut at this point. I've only watched the director's cut, which is different than the final cut. There's
I'll say the
7 different versions of this movie out
between
there.
The final cut and the director's cut is very minimal, because I have seen both. I watched the final cut prior to 2049, and it's really, they just cleaned up some scenes. A little bit of effects here and there, but like I think content-wise, they're basically the same.
Yeah, it's like
stuff they've cut, stuff they've added, whatnot.
Yeah, the theatrical cut has like the happy ending thing about it, whereas like the director's cut and the final cut have their kind of ambiguous ending where they just kind of walk off and that's it. You don't really know what's going to happen.
I know what's going to happen. I've seen the sequel. I know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, well now you know what's going to happen.
It is funny because it's
weird how
they cut out the happy ending, and it actually turns out that they ended fairly happily at that point. I mean, it was actually okay.
I thought it was weird how within the first couple of minutes they're like, "Yo, you got to go shoot this replicant. His name is Deckard." That didn't actually happen. But you know what? That's the thing I was worried about with 2049 is that's what they were gonna do.
Yeah. So,
but what's your opinion of Blade Runner?
So I've always liked Blade Runner. I kind of like I see like how crazy influential it was. Like the world that they built, the music is fantastic. Like visually, it's a spectacle. And I would probably say the exact same thing about the new one. But yeah, but like on like a level as far as a movie, it's very moody. It's a little cheesy at times when it comes to like all the I really like Daryl Hannah, but all the Daryl Hannah stuff with her character Pris, I think it is when she's doing like the gymnastics and like gets Deckard in like a leg lock and then like puts her fingers up his nose, and I'm like, that's just really weird stuff. Like,
yes.
But like but Rutger Hauer is haunting and awesome in that movie. The final speech, the ending of that movie is like one of the most iconic endings and memorable things in movies ever.
It was improvised too, right? Like that entire thing, I think, was like improvised.
I always heard I always thought I heard it was improvised. People were saying it wasn't necessarily improvised, but he wrote it himself. Okay. Which I guess is a little different. Like it's not like he came up with it on the spot, but it wasn't in the script. Basically, the iconic line of memories are lost like teardrops in the rain. Like that's an amazing like line, and it's a good movie. I mean. Look, it's an 80s movie. That's kind of like how chauvinistic and terrible men and women things were in a lot of those movies back in the day.
Yeah, I think the issue
love story that's in that game and in that movie. I mean,
they the issue that I have with it is that I don't ever feel like Deckard is a relatable character. I think that he's kind of a shitty person, and they do, I think, a way better job of making Ryan Gosling feel relatable and like a person, and like you get a pretty immediate connection with that character, which I think maybe the biggest problem with the original Blade Runner is that Deckard's not like a good character. He's a dick. He is, I know that's a noir trope because that is a super heavy noir movie, and I like noir, but I also feel like there's never a ton of point where I'm like, yeah, go get him, Deckard. Like there's never that sort of thing.
No.
Whereas I feel like Kay in this movie is a much more compelling and I feel like a much more relatable character. I think they did a way better job. I think that the writers and Denis Villeneuve, is it Villeneuve?
I don't know. I don't think I think it's just like Villeneuve. Like I don't think it is an extra syllable.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. But yeah, I mean, the Blade 2049 is kind of hard to talk about without spoiling it because I didn't go in knowing a ton about this movie other than the fact that it was Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford.
I didn't know that thing either because I think we're dancing around it because it's tough. But yes, I didn't think that was going to be the case either.
But all that being said, I think that Blade Runner 2049 is, again, a good movie, not a great movie as far as just like an overall experience. Like it's kind of the same thing I feel about the original Blade Runner. like visually, it's amazing. Like there's shots and there's scenes that are just absolutely breathtaking. The music is pretty good. Oh, what just happened?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome
Yeah,
back to
what's
our
up?
stream, guys. I'm sorry we had an incident where our video got lost for a second there.
Gus came back from the dead. He wants vengeance.
But it's all right. We put him down, Evil Dead style, and it's all good.
Yep.
So we were talking about Blade Runner 2049. So what I was saying is, I liked it. I do think, kind of like the original, that it's a marvel of, like, it looks gorgeous. There's a ton of shots that are absolutely gorgeous. Like, there's a whole part where they go to busted down Vegas, and everything in there is amazing. They go to there's like a nightclub, and you kind of see like a glimpse of like what the future of that world was before everything went to hell. That is really cool and really awesome, and honestly stuff that we're not necessarily that far away from technology wise from being able to reproduce.
The fight scene is, like, I think one of that fight scene in there is specifically one of the coolest things I think I've seen, just because of, like, how fucking weird it is and how it's shot. And like
it's
how
so,
they have like noise
so
that just kind of like pops in every so often. You just get like a little bit of noise in the background, but it's just usually just fucking Harrison Ford, punching and shit. It's great. Visually, I think it's stunning and stark in a lot of ways. Like, the first movie's got the big opening on, like, the blown out city, and then like this one, it's like the exact opposite. It's just like this like windswept desert with this like just like this one little farm that's just like in the middle of it, and it's like, it's so cool looking.
Not little farm, a gigantic, amazing, spiraling like set of like where you're like that's buildings. That's not usually you see that type of thing, and it's like, oh, that's like little plots of farmland, but they are. Buildings. Oh god, like, there's so many good shots, and the music is pretty great. I don't think it quite, I don't know how you could match up to the original as far as music goes, because that music from the original Blade Runner is so iconic and so influential. But I really like the music. But on a story level, like, I really like a lot of the themes of what they were trying to go for. But there's kind of like a main conceit of what the story is and what they're trying to do. And unlike the original, it leaves very much a kind of like unresolved, like you know what's going on, and they actually spend a decent amount of time kind of ramming it into your head, bashing your head, like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. But it never really gets anywhere, and it ends on a kind of a nice, like, beautiful moment, but it doesn't really resolve or anything. Like, it feels like, compared to the first one, which was this fully enclosed, like, this is a thing, this is the events that happened. This one's like, oh yeah, like, we're going to do a sequel in 3 years or 2 years to kind of finish up what the stuff that we started in this movie. And that was really off-putting to me. As well as there's like the final big action scene I thought was kind of weird and messy and kind of...
Oh, loved it. I love that scene.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I loved it.
I think we'll probably stop and get into like actual spoilers in a second here. But Adam, I'm guessing that just from that point, what you just said, I'm going to guess you probably liked it better than I did.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I think in a lot of ways it's better than the original. I think that it is not going to be remembered as like revolutionary as the original one was, but I think there's some really good characters. They give pretty clear motivations as to like why people are doing the things that they want to. Like Rutger Hauer's character has like a pretty clear idea of what he wants until he kills that dude, and then it's like he's like, okay, well, I guess we're not doing that. And then it's like, okay, well, now like we just have to go hunt him down. Whereas here, I feel like they do have, and they definitely, like, in a lot of times, hit you over the head with that stuff. Like, there's a couple points where they're like, they keep going at it, and they're like, okay, Here's another clue. What do you think's going on? Ooh. But I think that it's handled better than what was in the original one. I think like the story, the character, I think it just works better as a whole than the original movie did. And I still think the original Blade Runner is revolutionary, and it's not going to be forgotten anytime soon. But I think that this one, as a film, I think it was better. You know, I think it was like just a more complete experience. Yeah. Whereas like the original, I felt like had like a lot of really glimpses of really great ideas and some incredible visuals, but when you kind of tie them all together, there's like these issues and there's these things about it that don't work in a lot of cases. You know, I think it's a more of a complete thing than the first one, even though there is like, yeah, there's teaser stuff in there for sure for like another film that they're going to do. There's a pretty big thing they allude to at the 75% mark.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, this thing is gonna happen, and we need to do the thing to get the thing. And they definitely like lean really hard into that at the end.
Yeah, and that's where the movie started to lose me. That's the part where I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah. And maybe like I said, maybe we should talk about when we can like actually get full on and just spoil the movie. I still think that if you have any interest in the movie, I think it's a movie that demands to be seen in a theater on a nice big screen. I guess the cinematographer, the director, someone was out there saying don't go see it in 3D. That's like not how they intended it. So maybe, I guess don't do that. But I didn't see it in 3D. I saw it in just standard. Yeah. I just don't like 3D. But but it's the visuals and all that stuff. Like it deserves to be seen on a nice big screen with great audio. It's a really long movie. And I feel like it never got to the point where I was bored or like uninterested in it. Like, I will say for all the marketing that's in this, like I do wish that they hadn't blasted Harrison Ford's name and picture and face all over the trailers and the posters and stuff like that, because kind of like what like you were kind of joking of like, oh, is this going to be a movie where Ryan Gosling wakes up and he has to go kill Deckard, which is not how this movie starts. You in fact don't see him for like the first 2 hours of this movie, it seems like, and it's a 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's a long movie, and he is barely in this movie. He is a central figure because it is a direct sequel. It is dealing with the events of what happened in Blade Runner, most specifically that like love story between Deckard and Rachel. But yeah, he's not really in the movie all that much.
I think like the marketing behind it, I think at this point after Force Awakens, like there is a sort of stock in being able to, and look, movie's doing bad. Like the movie's doing really bad at the box office, like tragically bad. So like, yeah, of course they have to do whatever they can to get people into the theaters. And it really sucks that this movie is not doing better, because I think it deserves to do better. Denis Villeneuve, the only other movie that I've seen of him was Arrival, and that was really fucking good too. Arrival is incredible. It really, really sucks that this movie is doing this badly, especially because he wants to like do Dune next, which is just great. I love the idea of him doing Dune. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. I really like that Lynch version of Dune, as batshit crazy as it is. I would love to see a more sane director, let's say, take that task on. I love David Lynch, but I would really like to see somebody who's not going to just throw Sting in a thong up on the screen in this next one.
Yeah, no, it is disappointing. I mean, I feel like I don't like. I gotta imagine a lot of people are scared away by the runtime. Like I said, it is a very long movie, and I mean, that's what the movie should be. Like I said, it doesn't feel overly long. It's an enjoyable all the way through, but it's definitely like when I was like looking at it, like, oh, I'm gonna go see this movie. Oh, this movie is almost 3 hours long. Okay, like I gotta probably go to like a 7-ish movie because I don't want to be getting out of a movie theater at past midnight. Like, things like that, and as well as just the practicality of if you have that long of a movie, that means it cannot show that much in a given day. If it plays 5 times in a day versus 7 times in a day or whatever that looks like, that's all stuff that contributes to it. Whatever. It's not a blockbuster movie. It's not that type of thing. Like, it's a niche, like, thoughtful noir thing, like the first Blade Runner was. I don't think the first Blade Runner has an appreciation past tense, like a cult following. That might even be a little, because I think it's better than just like a cult following, but it has an appreciation. I don't think it did great in theaters either. It's something that
it bombed as well. Like both of the Blade Runner films have done poorly at the box office, but they grew an audience over time, and I hope that's what happens here, because I think that, you know what, goddamn, it's a risk to make a sequel to a niche noir cult film like Blade Runner. As much as I love as much as I really love the stuff of Blade Runner and the world and all of that stuff, it's a goddamn risk. And I think from a film making perspective, it was really good. Like, I think that it really works as a film, but I think trying to market it to people, trying to make it a thing that is going to appeal and bring people in, I think it's very, very tricky. Like, it's a detective movie. Like, it's a detective movie that has like a couple of action scenes in that, but not much. Like, there's a lot more of like, okay, we're gonna go to this area and we're gonna like do some investigating. We're gonna go into the old archives and try to find some information about this one thing. And let's go to this other person, and this person can look at the mines and do this other stuff. So it's I don't know how you sell that movie to a big audience without just being like, and Harrison Ford's in it.
Can you imagine it? I gotta say, I mean, that's the sad. I mean, I'm disappointed. I always do kind of wish that the Harrison Ford thing showing up was a big reveal, because
they're doing great.
When he didn't show up during the first like hour and a half, 2 hours of that movie, for him to show up near the end would have been like, holy crap, Harrison Ford. But it does surprise me. Like, I keep thinking of Dunkirk, which is another kind of odd movie that is unlike anything I've ever seen, and that made a ton of money. And I feel kind of similar to this. Like, it's a weird movie to necessarily recommend to people, but it's like you have to see it in theaters. Like, I wouldn't recommend you go see Dunkirk on like go watch it on your TV or watch it on like an iPad watch it on a plane. It's the same thing for this. Like, this is a movie that deserves to be seen in theaters.
I missed seeing Dunkirk in theaters, and I'm kind of pissed at myself that I didn't get the chance to.
Yeah, because it's one of those movies. It's a movie kind of like this. It does not have a lot of talking. It is kind of just people doing stuff, except that stuff happens to be war versus detective work. So just, I guess, inherently it's more exhilarating and exciting.
I mean, also it's there's still a pretty good amount of stock in the name of Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, and Dunkirk, Dunkirk is really good. I mean, and so that's something to be said about a good movie doing good. But
I have no doubts that it's like a good movie, but I also think like the stock of the Christopher Nolan name, like, you got to think about it, like, there's a lot of people who have now grown up with a series of Batman films from Christopher Nolan, and Inception and Interstellar, and
Interstellar.
I liked Interstellar. I thought Interstellar. But like, there's a lot of stock in that name, so I think it's definitely easier when I heard the initial talk about Dunkirk, it was very much Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. There was an ownership.
The next thing that Christopher Nolan is doing, basically.
Where let's just say that Ridley Scott, his stock is not super high right now.
Not
as much as I like the stuff.
Not the last two.
I like his stuff. I liked Alien Covenant, and I liked Prometheus. I don't think they're great movies, but I liked them. But there's definitely like less of a name there. So, and even this, like, he's not directing it. He's, I think, just in a producer role. This is as we said, like Denis Villeneuve, or however the fuck you pronounce it.
Yes.
He's directing it, and I hope that this doesn't turn people away from his style of filmmaking, because, like I said, I think that Arrival is great. I think it's an incredible fucking movie, and I think that this is a really great movie. It's a movie fan's movie. It's not a big blockbuster thing. It's not the last Transformers movie, let's say.
Hey, Adam, you want to check your mic? I think it's rubbing on your...
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Not so good.
I've been having issues with it there, and I've been trying to keep it away. So
that's all right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I recommend Blade Runner. Like, I'm not nearly as high on it as you are, but I definitely enjoyed my time. We're gonna kind of cut it right there, because I want to talk to Adam in much more specific detail about the actual, like, the main plot of this movie, the twist, the, like, a lot of that stuff. And if you haven't seen it, I think you should go in and not knowing that stuff, because it's good stuff. So if you're listening / watching this and you want to not be spoiled about what goes on in the bulk of Blade Runner 2049, now would be your time to stop listening, to stop watching. We're pixrelated.net, all that stuff. Go find us there. Giving you plenty of time to turn off the thing. And yeah. So Adam, the thing that really bugged me about this movie was the entire conceit of the movie is Ryan Gosling. So there is a child that is born from either. So this is funny. We didn't talk about this. I like that the movie never really answers the is Deckard a replicant or a human question. Like, I really didn't think they were going to go 2 hours and 45 minutes without answering that question, and they totally did. Like, there's like the one line where...
So good. I'm so happy that they didn't. That's so good, because that would have been such a bullshit way to deal with that.
Yeah, to deal with
so glad they did it.
30 years or whatever it's been of guessing and figuring out. So I was really happy about that. But there's the one line where Jared Leto is talking to Deckard. I forget what Jared Leto's character's name was. And he's like, how do you know you weren't designed to fall in love with Rachel? And he just kind of says, I know what real is. And that's it. Like, that's the entire conversation about whether am I a replicant or am I a human. Because I think at this point, I'm not even sure Deckard knows whether he's a human or a replicant. Because honestly, how do you know? Like, if you don't have, like, the little serial number under your eye and you pass the whatever the test was from the first movie, like...
oh god, what was the name of the test? Oh crap, I'm gonna have to look it up. Like, yes.
How do you know? How do you know you're replicant? Like, you bleed, apparently you age, like, all this stuff.
Well, but, like, even in the original movie, like, the thing that alludes to it is because Rachel says, like, have you ever turned that test on yourself?
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then the stuff that they added with the director's cut about, like, the unicorn and his partner leaving the unicorn origami figure, like, things like little things like that. Like, there's
Voight-Kampff.
Yeah, the Voight-Kampff. Yeah, so I mean, like, at this point, I still think that Deckard's not sure what he is, and is kind of just accepting that. I think more it's about that Deckard, through the first movie, understands that it's not necessarily about whether you are a replicant or a human. It's that shouldn't matter, and that life, all life is precious, basically. And so the idea of this is that Rachel and Deckard had a child somehow, because being a replicant, that should not be possible. And Jared Leto, one of the big baddies of this movie, is, against all measures, is trying to figure out how to do it because he's solved the problem of making replicants obedient, but he can't solve the problem of making replicants being able to replicate, and he knows that Tyrell did it because there is one that they found. And so Ryan Gosling, over the course of the movie, thinks he's that child, that he is not a whatever store-bought replicant or wherever the replicants come from, that he is the child. And then in an absolute just like gut punch, just like killer moment where they meet the resistance leader, that's the part where the movie started to lose me, is when they brought out this resistance and the war against humans and all that stuff. And then they go, oh, you thought it was you. No, it was a girl. And it's just like, oh, that sucks so much for Ryan Gosling, because he had built up all this, I am his like AI girlfriend is like, you are a real boy after all, like all this stuff. And it's like, oh no, that's not you. You're not special at all, actually.
And they imply that the reason he has those memories is part of something bigger. And they don't explicitly say like, hey, here's what it is, but it's implied that like these memories were implanted into these replicants, presumably to make them think they're human, to give them the connection that Ryan Gosling eventually gets of like, whether or not I'm a replicant, I still have freedom of choice. I get to choose.
Yeah. Because
so presumably
they have those real human memories versus memories constructed out of the ether, as you kind of see. But the part where it lost me, so it had that moment, and that's just a gut punch. That's a killer moment. But then they go into this like 1 minute, 2 minute long montage where they just hammer it in, like, oh, you are not the guy. Oh, it's this girl over here. Remember that girl from earlier in the movie? Oh yeah, she's the daughter of the thing. All this stuff, and it's just like, oh, like, could you not just let that happen naturally through the movie? Do you have to like cut away from the action, cut away from what's going on to have a montage, a cut scene of and then at that point, then they start going into the, all right, well, you need to go kill Deckard because Deckard's going to give away the position of his daughter and all this stuff, which doesn't make any sense because he doesn't know where his daughter is. He specifically mentioned that he removed
they
himself
all went in separate directions
specifically for that reason, so he would not be able to do that and not be able to betray them. And then I thought that the final fight scene, first of all, that lady, whoever the actress that plays Love, is terrifying, like absolutely like shocking. Oh my goodness. I forget what exactly the conversation was, but she was on the phone or something like that. Or no, she was talking to someone and she immediately goes like, oh, hold on. And like, she just gets a look on her face and like walks out of the room. And I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, that girl is not to be messed with. And then, then she just kills Robin Wright out of nowhere. She kills that one guy in the morgue. Like, just, she is terrifying and awesome.
She's great.
But that fight at the end where you're like in water, but only like a foot of water, and then it's sinking, but it's kind of sinking slowly. Like I found that whole fight scene
it's because it's
confusing.
like on that wall, right? That they show.
It was just
so like I liked that though, because I liked that they have like this entire world that they built up, and it's sort of like the beginning of the movie, right, where they have this entire like big cyber world with like flashing holograms that kind of recognize you and shit like that. But then they just fucking end it in this like bleak, like watery mess. Like, I love that. I love that they just like, they're like removing it from all of that glitzy sort of stuff, and they are putting it in this kind of brutal scenario. I will say there was like a point where it just kind of felt like it was maybe going on a bit too long.
And there was definitely some of that. And there was parts where it's like, wait, is he drowning? No, like the next cut, now I guess he's fine. His head's above water. Wait, no, I thought he was just drowning. Like, what's going, like it was kind of confusing. It was kind of choppy. Like, it felt like they did that scene because of how cool it looks and not necessarily because it's a cool way for that action scene to play out. Because it definitely looks
like
cool.
Blade Runner, the original. Wah, wah.
Um, but
Yeah.
and like, yeah, and you compare it to the nightclub fight scene with disjointed Elvis music that doesn't sync up with the video that's coming out, and them shooting and punching. Like, that scene is amazing and
It's
awesome.
fucking great.
And like, and it just, yeah, it doesn't quite hold, even though like, yeah, the action of the final fight in the water is probably better action because Harrison Ford's an old man, and you know, he's got to do what he's got to do. But like, just the way that scene plays out in the nightclub is just awesome and cool.
Yeah, it's inventive. Like, it's the thing about this movie, like, now that we have holographic technology that is starting, like, it's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, now let's like take it to the future, but then let's super fuck it up. Like, let's make it so they're like old and they've got like sand and like it's really like decrepit, and so it's not
it barely works.
Right.
It's not like, yeah, like you could see a future where in a couple of years, like 4 years, something like that, you could go to a play or a show at Vegas or somewhere and watch a full concert of hologram Elvis doing a hologram Elvis thing. Like, I could very easily see that. Like, yeah, that's like, we're not that far off from that type of thing. We've already got it in little bits and pieces. With holograms and whatnot, they could totally do it full show probably in a couple of years. Yeah.
But yeah, I think like the way that they ended it, also like ending it with Time to Die, and then like realizing like, oh, okay, he's dead. Like, that was a thing. Like, when I was watching, I was like, oh, is he just like laying down, and you like hear the music, like, oh
yeah, he's dead.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
dead.
he dead. All right. Okay. All right. I felt like that was like a little bit like almost weirdly delayed, because it felt like, oh, we have to have him get the reuniting with his daughter, and we have to have that little ending there. It was a little bit, I wasn't a huge fan of the way that it ended with like he drags Harrison Ford, however many miles to this place, and it's like, all right, time to die.
And I mean, and it's definitely a touching moment to see, Harrison Ford get back into contact with his daughter, but like a half an hour previous to that, they had built up all this like, oh, like, we're the war resistance, she's gonna be the person that spurns all the replicants to rise up and make a name for ourselves, and it's like, they didn't do anything with that. They didn't, like, having Harrison Ford beat his daughter is sweet, and it's definitely touching, and it's emotional, but it doesn't accomplish any of that. Like, they still have to break her out, they still have to get her back to that group, they still have to do whatever they're going to do with all that stuff. Like, it's like, and I don't want to see that movie. Like, I don't want to see, it makes me think of like the third Hunger Games movie. Like, I didn't want to see a Hunger Games movie where they were just fighting the man. I just wanted to see a Hunger Games movie where they were in a big circle killing each other. Like, I don't want to see.
The circle gets smaller.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the circle. Yeah, I don't want to see. I mean, that is what happens in those movies. Like, I don't want to see a movie with the replicants and the humans fighting each other in a big like war. That's not what Blade Runner is. So I was kind of disappointed that that's what, like, the end of the movie kind of focused on. But then, then it kind of took a step back and just focused on the father-daughter relationship. I wish it had just been that. Like, it had just been like, like the end of Minority Report, where it's like, hey, we have these super special people, and we just don't want them to be bothered, so we're going to put them out in the cabin in the middle of nowhere. Like, yeah, you know what? Harrison Ford reunited with his daughter, but we're just going to let them go off and live their lives or something like that. Like, let them reunite his family. Like, we don't have to use her as this big piece of resistance and whatnot. So, I mean, and I feel like that's like Ryan Gosling, Kay died kind of knowing that. Like, it's not necessarily that he helped do the resistance and stuff like that, but he reunited a father with his daughter, and he had that deep emotional connection to it because he had a lot of those memories in his memory banks, by design, to help do that. Yeah,
it's a noir ending, right? Of like, it almost reminds me of just like some noir movies where it's like the detective just kind of like dies as they sort of fix the final thing. For some reason, I'm getting like a vibe of like some of the shit with like Sin City almost, which is not a great noir point, but like, hey, you found the daughter, Bruce Willis. She's a stripper. That's not what she does in this one. She's not a stripper in this one.
That would have been a
but
twist,
like,
though. That would have been a twist.
it would have been a really twist, like an like an immune system deficiency stripper. No touching at all whatsoever. No, but like, it just kind of has like that. It does have like a nice noir feeling to it. I feel like if they were to do another story, I feel like the entire story of like the robot war, the replicant war would be like almost one of the. So there was a set of side video mini movies that
I heard
were released alongside this. I only watched the animated one, which deals with a blackout. It kind of shows like what happened with the blackout, because it was never super clear of exactly what happened with the blackout, which I liked. I like that sort of leaving a lot of it up to your imagination. But it turns out it's actually kind of a proto version of what the replicant uprising would look like, where like these replicants hijacked like a tanker and they like drove it into this power plant, and they also had like somebody who was able to like get into the military systems and like fire off a missile, and it was good. Like I've heard decent stuff about those films.
I've heard that they're really good.
I know like one of them has Dave Bautista, and then like the other one I think is like a Jared Leto thing, which like Jared Leto, hey, you know what? Jared Leto plays a really creepy asshole really well.
That's
it's
what
weird.
He's doing now. He's just going to play really weird people.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's another part of this movie that kind of doesn't get wrapped up. Like, sure, like his hench lady, Love, gets destroyed, but he doesn't get any resolution other than he just fails. Like, he just doesn't get the child, but we never kind of get any resolution on what's going on with that. Whatever he was going to send Deckard to off-world to do more torture, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's like this leaves a lot of stuff kind of open-ended and unanswered. One thing I don't think we talked about is the whole virtual girlfriend thing that Ryan Gosling has, his wife, girlfriend, whatever, Joy. That whole thing is just bizarre and interesting, and just brings up a whole other set of questions of like, okay, do the replicants have a soul? Okay, if maybe they have a soul, maybe they don't. Okay, is this a consciousness? Is this someone that's just saying what Ryan Gosling's character wants to hear? Because that's kind of what they're designed for, is to be like the perfect mate. Like, and then you have that real gut punching thing where he sees the like giant virtual version of his wife after she's already died, and obviously it's just the robot, the one that doesn't know who he is, doesn't have anything, and just talking to him normally, and it's like, oh, I bet that sucks. It's like, imagine like watching.
Well, and then there's like also that there's the holographic three-way, like that's
that part's really weird too.
Like I think that's also like a really like well shot scene. Like I think it's a really cool effect. Like it's super cool. But like it's also this thing of like afterwards, like there's like this really uncomfortable set of moments right after it happens, and then they have the little cat fight there where she's like, I've been inside of you, there's not much there. It's like, oh, that's fucked up. I think that side story is actually the thing that I maybe liked the most. Like I think that it made Ryan Gosling as a character, I think it made it work really well, because you get the sense of like, this dude is just like, he doesn't have anybody. He has like all of his the people who live in like his apartment, they're like writing these like replicant slurs all over
they
his
hate him.
door.
Everyone around him hate him. Even the people that he works with at like the police station are, get out of my way, you skin job, or whatever. They they hate him. Like, everyone hates him. Even his boss, who is kind of nice to him, like talks down to him and says terrible things about, oh, you don't have a soul, you're doing fine, like, whatever.
Yeah. So like it does this great job of humanizing this character, and like as you see his view on like, okay, what am I? Do I have a soul? Am I this chosen, am I the chosen one? You begin to also see like how their relationship evolves, and how it does bring up that question of like, why is she saying this? Is she saying this as a thing to comfort him because she really believes it? Can a hologram that is built specifically to be this perfect thing that can be whatever he wants, whenever he wants, is it just doing that as a reaction, or is there a genuine development of a soul there?
Yeah, exactly. Is she her own person with consciousness, or is she like the person that Ryan Gosling wishes he could be? Like, she's the one that's kind of like building him up and saying like, no, you can do this. We need to do or do all this stuff. Like, is that just a reflection of like his his inner self trying to get out? Like, she sees the real him, or because he that's the only thing that he opens up to. Like, it's so well done. And I really wondered, because like there's that scene where he goes into the apartment for the first time, and you hear him talking to his woman, and, oh yeah, how was your day at work? Oh yeah, I'm making dinner, blah blah blah. And the whole time I'm like, they're very suspiciously not showing this person that he's talking to at all. Like, there's like this has got to be like, oh, an AI or something like that, and then it is an AI, but an AI in a completely different way than I expected. Yeah, she was like that just as a character is just a really cool character and a really cool idea, and yeah, it brings up a lot of questions. But yeah.
I think I just think I think that as an overall film, I think it's, I've been saying this, I think it's a lot better than the original one. I think there's some really great characterization stuff. I think that they don't overdo it. I think you bring up the robot resistance thing, which who knows if they're even going to be able to do that now, if there is a plan for another one after the kind of failure of this movie at the box office. Like, is there going to be anything else?
Yeah, I mean, and I hope they don't, and I hope that there isn't at least I hope it's not that generic of a thing where it's, hey, it's War for the Planet of the Apes replicant human version. Like, I mean, War for the Planet of the Apes is actually a really good movie, so maybe that's a bad
Blade
example.
Runner Revolutions.
Yeah,
how about that?
Yeah, like, it's like, I would hope that they understand what Blade Runner is, or if they tried to make another one that did maybe focus more on the, hey, replicants rising to power, it was in a way that is not, hey, let's have a group of people that are machines and a group of people that are not machines shooting guns at each other and just trying to kill each other. Like,
I mean, maybe it's
I'm not sure what that movie would look like anyways, so
maybe it's a thing of like tail wagging the dog, where it's like whatever the next one is, it's just basically Deus Ex, and it takes place however many years after that war, and we just kind of see the like fallout of it. And
so 30 years from now, we're gonna get Blade Runner 2079. Ryan Gosling's an old man. He didn't die on the steps.
Wait, maybe we can do it in just 20 years. Maybe if we can do it in 20 years instead of 30 years.
Why do you have to go there? All right, I think on that note, I think it's probably time to wrap this up. That's obviously that's already probably in production as like the porn parody of this movie anyways. So yep, right. Trademark Blade Runner 2069.
Gotta do some research really quickly.
All right. As always, you can find us on pixelrelated.net. On Twitter, we are pixel_related. On YouTube as well under pixel related. Twitch under pixel related. You can find both of us on Twitter if you want to reach out to us specifically, but the best way to get a hold of us as a podcast is our Twitter. That's it for this week. Next week, we will probably... Actually, we might not do one next week, because I don't know if there's a ton... Does South Park come out next week? Is that right?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, we're in it now. Like, the games are basically coming out.
Evil Within 2 is out tomorrow.
These weird Friday releases. Mario comes out on a Friday, too. It's so weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, Nintendo games have pretty traditionally, as of late, been coming out. I think, like, the weird thing is that Assassin's Creed and Wolfenstein are both out on Friday
as well. Well, whatever. So, I mean, yeah, whether it's next week or maybe a little bit after that, so we can talk about all those games that we just mentioned. We'll be with you soon to talk about more stuff. And in the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time.